Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Like I said, you just witnessed the best part of the meeting. So just know that we have some very, very talented students in Metro Nashville Public Schools, and this was just a small part of what we have in our schools. And they've been here before. They're always very entertaining, very energetic. And last time, if I'm not mistaken, when they came, they even got Mr. Pinkston to dance with them. That was quite a treat.
It was a bad incident.
We have established a quorum, and we will get the pledge from Mr. Jason Walsh.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Pooper Walker.
Good evening. I want to begin by recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month tonight, but I want to start by recognizing Gabriela Fuentes, who's the teacher of the mariachi band here. She's incredible. Let's give her a round of applause. And of course, very talented students. I also want to recognize Manuel Delgado, who's in the audience. If you could stand up, Manuel. Manuel is thank you, Manuel, a third-generation luthier who owns La Tradicion Guitars here in Nashville and who was instrumental in bringing the mariachi program to Metro schools in 2012 and has supported them in countless ways. And it's folks like Manuel Delgado that make Metro schools a special place. So thank you, Manuel. So now in its 7th year, the mariachi program, part of Music Makes Us, is a critically important piece of our larger arts education programming in MNPS, and one that honors the traditions and cultural history of Mexico by providing an opportunity to celebrate and learn a vibrant folkloric music. I appreciate the investment that MNPS makes in music education and for celebrating the rich diversity in our schools. So I'd like to read a proclamation on behalf of Metro Nashville Davidson County Board of Education. During National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th to October 15th, whose roots go back to 1968, we recognize the contributions made and the important presence of Hispanic Americans in the United States and celebrate their heritage and culture. Whereas Hispanics have had a profound and positive influence on our country through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service, they have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their community. And whereas approximately 26% of our students across MNPS are Hispanic and represent countries included, but not limited to, Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia, Costa Rica, the country my family's from, Cuba, Chile, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and Salvador, and many more. Whereas nearly 20,000 MNPS students come from a household where Spanish is their first language. Whereas we are proud to recognize and honor the rich heritage and cultures of our students, families, and Nashville community. Be it therefore proclaimed that the Metro Nashville Board of Education issues this proclamation to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. And in Metro Nashville Public Schools, we encourage all staff, students, families, and residents to join in celebrating the collective ingenuity, creativity, cultures, and traditions of Hispanic Americans and to continue honoring their contributions throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pooper Walker. Mr. Pinkston, would you like, does anyone have any objection to anything that's on the agenda before we move on? Okay. All right. Mr. Pinkston?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to also add my thanks and appreciation to the mariachi band. One of the great, and you've heard a lot about their background and their connection to Music Makes Us, and they're award-winning and all the things that we know about great bands. Just personal reflection, it's been one of the great honors of my life to represent the Glencliff cluster and get to know the mariachi players and Gabriela Fuentes, who's the director. You know, every band has a leader, and there's no better leader than Senor Fuentes. She schooled me early and often on mariachi. I've over the years booked a few gigs for them to help with the booster fund, and I said, well, you know, maybe we just need, you know, one fiddle here and one guitar there. She's like, no, that's not how mariachi works. You have to have 10, 12, 15, 20 to get the sound. And And so I learned a lot through that process. So thank you, Senora Fuentes, for your leadership. Thank you to the entire band for the great work you do. And if you ever haven't seen any pictures of these kids online, just Google them, and you'll see Tennessean photos. You'll see other things. Every single, like they have their own staff photographer. Every single photo, they look like a rock band. Like they look like they're headed, into a stadium concert. They're awesome. So thank you again for being here today. Go Mariachi.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. And now we'll move on to the awards and recognitions portion of our meeting. Dr. Battle.
So Metro Nashville Public Schools and the Office of Community Achieves is joining the Coalition for Community Schools this week to honor and celebrate our community school coordinators. Nationally, there are more than 5,000 community schools, and we are proud to have over 40 community schools here in MNPS. In MNPS, those coordinators are Community Achieve Site Managers, Family Resource Center Managers, led by Pencil and Family and Children Services, and Communities in Schools Coordinators. These individuals create a strong, purposeful bridge between schools and communities. They work diligently to create and manage partnerships that allow students to learn and thrive. This also means supporting families and teachers. Some examples of those partnerships that they manage include lunch buddies, mentors, tutors, support with basic needs like food, clothing, and hygiene items, various workshops for parents, and support and teacher appreciation. Tonight, we recognize and we thank you for your service to our students and our schools and for the impact you're having on our entire city of Nashville. So at this moment, I would like to welcome up all of our Community Achieves leaders and staff members to be recognized and to celebrate you for your hard work and dedication here in MNPS.
Just you, just you, just you.
Well, however y'all usually. Y'all can like photobomb that.
Oh, well, there's a lot of people up there, so, I mean, if it were just one or two.
People that knows whether we're in there or not.
Go ahead.
Tonight, we will also recognize one of our schools for their LEED Silver certification, and that is Pennington Elementary School. Following recent renovations, Pennington Elementary was awarded a LEED Silver level designation for the steps taken to promote energy conservation. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design and is one of the most popular green building certification programs used worldwide. Pennington joins 15 other MNPS facilities obtaining this certification. At this time, I would like to invite up David Profit, our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Construction, to provide additional details about this recognition.
I think it's working. Thank you, Dr. Battle. Ms. Shepard, board members. Excuse me. I want to make one correction, and it's my fault totally. I put 15, gave you the wrong information. It's 20 buildings that we
It's
actually.
even better.
So Pennington joins those ranks, and we were informed about 2 weeks ago this. We have a practice and are mandated that all of our new facilities, in addition to our facilities, are constructed to the LEED Silver designation by LEED through the United States Green Building Council. And so just to let you know what some of those items are that we built into the school and how it was scored to receive this designation includes potable water use reduction, energy cost savings by utilizing high-performance building systems, construction waste diverted from the landfills, recycled content in our materials that we use throughout the construction of the facility, the use of regional facilities, use of low-emitting materials for adhesives and sealants, paints, coatings, low VOCs, as you might have heard mentioned in other conversations, innovation in design for green housekeeping program implemented by MNPS, and also innovation in design with an integrated pest management program that we also implement throughout the district. So those are just some of the things that help the project achieve LEED Silver. And so we're very proud and honored, and we'll have all the plaques out there and all the certificates, and we'll have another one mounted soon in the hallway near Mr. Henson's office. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prophet.
Oh, and we will have, a little plaque to put out at the school too, for the silver LEED.
And whose district? I was going to ask you, Mr. Prophet, whose district is Pennington Elementary in?
Could it be Ms. Shepard?
It might be. All right, we'll move on to governance issues, our organization, and with the consent agenda, Ms. Frode.
A1A, recommended approval of request number 8 for small scope projects at various schools, Jolton Middle School bleacher access, Bomar Construction Company. B, recommended approval of request number 8 for purchase of playground equipment and installation at Ruby Major Elementary School pre-K playground, Play World Preferred. C, recommended approval of request number 9 for purchase of playground equipment and installation at Cole Elementary School pre-K playground, Play World Preferred. D, recommended approval of request number 10 for purchase of playground equipment and installation at Norman Binkley Elementary School pre-K playground, Play World Preferred. E, recommended approval of request number 11 for purchase of playground equipment and installation at Julia Green Elementary School playground, Play World Preferred. F, awarding of purchases and contracts. 1, Avid Center. 2, Blackboard Incorporated. 3, CDW-G. 4, Donna Culver, DBA Culver Productions. 5, Hatch Incorporated. 6, Personal Computer Systems Incorporated. 7, POSIP Incorporated. 8, Schoolology Incorporated. 9, Unico Technology. I move that we adopt the consent agenda as read.
Can I get a, okay, thank you. Are there any, all in favor? Show of hands, please. Okay, any objections? All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Frog. Next on our governance issues is charter school review team recommendations. Mr. Quinn?
I believe we're going to pass out some documents, so the board members and the director will have access to that.
Oh.
Tonight, we're going to, the Charter Office will have 2 amended application review recommendations before the board. If you recall, on June 25th, this office presented the initial application recommendations on 2 charter applications. For both of those applications, the recommendation and the vote of the board was to deny contracts. Each of these applicants then submitted amended applications, and by law, we then went back and reviewed the amended applications, and we're here tonight to present to the board the recommendations of the review teams based upon their amended applications. Having said that, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Battle, thank you for the opportunity to share the Charter Office Review Team's recommendation on the amended first Nashville Collegiate Prep Charter School application. Turn this on. There we go. The Charter Office Core Review Team, we have listed as the membership of the core or the Charter Office here in Metro Nashville. In addition to that, we had an expanded review team, as was the case with the initial application. For the amended application, review individuals with specific expertise in exceptional education, English language learners, business and finance, curriculum and facilities also review each application to provide the needed support in those areas. We are very careful to tap experts in the areas of which the applications must address. I want to take just a minute to review some timelines, and you have this in front of you. By state law, you will see the new applications. Applicants are required to submit a letter of intent to both MNPS and the State Board of Tennessee 60 calendar days prior to submitting a completed application on April 3rd of 2019. The application review consists of an evaluation of the application as submitted and an interview with a prospective applicant and their proposed governing board. The district has 90 calendar days from then to submit recommendations to the MNPS Board of Education and for the board to vote on those recommendations. And that vote took place initially on June 25th. Then there's an amendment process that's in place. TCA 49-13-108, subsection 3, gives applicants 30 calendar days from the date of receipt of grounds for denial to submit an amended application to correct the deficiencies. The MNPS Board of Education then has 30 calendar days from the receipt of the amended application to either deny or approve the application based on the recommendation of the review teams. There is an appeal process. Okay, correction, 60 days. There's an appeal process as well. If the board should vote to deny an appeal, an amended application, then the applicant has 10 days to appeal to the state board for an appeals hearing. You will then see that you have in your possession a timeline for charter applications. It kind of gives you a better perspective on the step-by-step process that the charter office goes through with the review teams, meetings, and things of that nature up to the point of building the recommendation report. And then, of course, making those recommendations. And as you can see on June 25th, the charter office presented Nashville Collegiate Prep and Rocket Ship number 3 to this board. There's also attached a timeline for the charter applications if it is an amended application. And as you can see, September 24th, we're back with you once again with the same 2 applications that were amended. Nashville College Prep, Collegiate Prep, and Rocket Ship number 3. So there's a process or some legal guidelines that we follow in the charter office that governs the process and when things are brought before the board. The focus of the review team during the amended application review process, the review team focuses, and this again, this is the amended process. The review team focuses only on the portions of the application that are deemed partially meet standard or does not meet standard. Any area where they met standard, we do not focus on another review of that. For this application, these areas included academics, operations, and finance, all 3 of which received partially meet standard. And again, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the rating standards that we use or characteristics of meet standards, partially meet standard, does not meet standard. If you go to slide number 10, the academic plan, when the review team reviewed the amended applications, You have in your possession some bulleted areas where they felt deficient, once again, based upon our recommendations. But what we found overall was there were a number of academic issues that were not addressed, or they were insufficiently addressed. Once again, that included the areas around exceptional ed, English language, RTI supports for students. There were still some concerns that were not answered concerning the relationship between the school and Trevecca Nazarene. So some of those were not addressed for us. Still unclear on how the identified instructional methods or strategies work cohesively together. It appears still to be a bit fragmented once they returned that to us. We, once again, the review team, deemed the academic piece to partially meet standards. We then moved on to the operations. The operations plan partially meets standard as well, because each section lacks detail to provide a clear picture of the school's proposed operations plan and the founding team's capacity to execute it. Facilities plans are unclear other than potential land locations and narratives describing potential space. Again, you have a more detailed description in front of you. I would move us to the financial plan. The financial plan also was deemed to partially meet standard. The financial section in the amended application was greatly improved. However, the review team still felt various areas of the budget were unclear and therefore partially met standard as well. In summary, although a thorough review of the Nashville Collegiate Prep's written amendment application by the review team and along with the Office of Charter Schools, a recommendation of denial for this application is presented to this board. The reasons for this denial are based upon the schools not adequately addressing concerns and partially meeting of standards in academics, operations, and financial. In conclusion, the review team felt the amended application for Rethink Forward did not present a clear, comprehensive, and effective plan to successful instruction for students within MPS, and felt there were unanswered questions remaining in the operation and financial sections. Concerns still remained for the review team regarding the reliance of Rethink Forward has placed on NEI, the proposed CMO. The Office of Charter Schools respectfully recommends that the MNPS Board of Education deny this amended application.
Are there any questions from Mr. Quinn? Okay, can I get a motion based upon the recommendation?
I move to deny the application as recommended by the Charter Office.
Can I get a second? Okay. Any discussion? Okay. We have a motion, and it's been seconded that we deny this application recommendation from the Charter School Office. All in favor, show of hands, please. Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The second amended application is from rocket ship number 3. Again, you have a PowerPoint in front of you. There's two additional pages of information that we've provided for you. This recommendation came to you June 25th as well. It was presented as a recommendation to not approve. Today, the amended application review team recommendation is that you approve this application. The core team, again, specifically, our core team specifically trained to assess the quality and sustainability of a proposed school reviews in each of these areas in a charter application. In addition, we had an extended core team of experts in the areas of exceptional ed, English language, business, finance, curriculum, facilities. They also were involved in reviewing the amended application from rocket ship number 3. Again, I will just reference this, the next 3 slides, which we covered previously, and that has to do with the timelines for new applications, amended applications, and potential appeals to the state board. We also just mentioned the timeline for charter applications and the timeline for amended application reviews. For rocket ship number 3, During the amended application process, the review team focuses only on the portions of the application that are deemed partially meet standard and/or does not meet standard. For this application, it was in the area of past performance only. If you recall from the previous recommendation, they met standard in academics, they met standard in finance, and they met standard in operations. You have in front of you some of the bulleted information that we had shared previously. Again, we did not review any of these three due to the fact they had met standard. So I would reference you to go to, and it's on page 13 on mine. It may be a little different for yours. Actually, I've got a couple of pages missing on mine, it appears. Yeah, do you mind, please? Thank you, ma'am. Yes, if you'd go to it's page 13 on you for you. Concerning past performance, which rocket ship number 3 received partially meets. If you recall, at our previous meeting, the reason for that was there was only 1 year of what we would consider good data. And as a result, we could not deem it to be a pattern of good data. Since the last presentation, the state has released the state assessment data, and both of the schools actually are performing at very high standards. And so I want to just share a little bit with you this evening. If you look at, in 2017, Rocket Ship Northeast did receive a notice of concern from this office for performing in the lowest 10% of schools in the state. In both 2018 and 2019, and under new school leadership, and we want to stress they brought in new leadership and made a number of changes internally, Rocket Ship Northeast has performed, as we will share with you now. Let me get to that page here. Rocket Ship Northeast achieved a level 5 TVOS in numeracy for both 2018 and 2019. Rocket Ship Northeast achieved a level 3 TVOS in literacy in both 2018 and 2019. Rocket Ship Northeast showed high levels of student growth in mathematics as compared to area elementary schools. Additionally, Rocket Ship Northeast outperformed both district and most area school achievement averages in math in 2019. Rocket Ship Northeast scored just below district average achievement in ELA in 2019. If we look at Rocket Ship United has performed well over the past 2 years and received reward school status for the state of Tennessee in 2018. Rocket Ship United achieved level 5 TVOS in numeracy in 2018 with a level 3 in 2019. Rocket Ship United achieved level 5 TVOS in literacy in 2018 with a level 3 in 2019. Rocket Ship United outperformed district and area school achievement averages in both ELA and math in 2019. The data for 2019 provided evidence of sustained student growth and achievement for both schools, especially in Rocket Ship Northeast. The application meets standard for past performance. And I believe you have in your packet some charts where we did some comparison analysis of the schools in comparison to some of the elementaries in that general area. Do they not have it? Okay. We can get that for you. I thought it was already in the packet. So the Office of Charter Schools recommends the board approve this charter application based on the evidence presented.
Thank you, Mr. Queen. I have any questions or comments from board members? No. Okay, the motion, we need a motion to approve this charter school application.
I move that we approve the application for Rocket Ship number 3.
Okay. Do we have a second? We do not have a second. With no second, the motion fails, correct? Right. Right. Okay, then we'll need a new motion to replace that motion.
I move that we deny the Rocket Ship charter application.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Pogue?
So before I make my remarks, I do want to acknowledge all of the parents here, and I, believe all parents, we're all just trying to do the best thing, what we believe is best for our children. But I do have a very long list of concerns about rocket ship, which I am going to detail for the record, and I apologize for the length of this, but it is important if we are going to deny a recommendation from the charter office that we make a record. Rocket ship was the brainchild of an ambitious Silicon Valley entrepreneur who made a fortune in internet advertising. This school's model utilizes a high student-to-teacher ratio as a way to free up money to fund software companies and for-profit property investors. School Digger, a national online school rating site, shows that Rocket Ship United here in Nashville maintains a student-to-teacher ratio of 49.3 students to 1 teacher. This ratio takes into account the use of computer learning labs, which I will detail further shortly. The growth of Rocket Ship schools is fueled by profit and investment. Tax dollars intended for students are instead used to pay off properties for investors. Many of the rocket ship properties are developed by tennis star Andre Agassi's billion-dollar for-profit company, including a rocket ship building here in Nashville. According to Agassi's partner and the firm's CEO, Bobby Turner, quote, "The goal is to generate profit for investors while serving a higher public purpose. If you want to really cure a problem in society, you need to come up with a sustainable solution, and that means making money," end quote. Rather than using tax dollars to pay for a new school building that would be owned by the taxpayers who footed the bill, Rocket Ship instead uses tax dollars to pay off buildings for investors who are able to turn a real estate profit at the expense of children and taxpayers. Furthermore, critics of the rocket ship model point to board documents suggesting that properties funded by Agassi cost taxpayers millions more than other funding methods, and these critics also contend that rocket ship charges hefty management fees, about twice what local school districts require. High management fees would present a big problem for most schools, which spend a majority of funding on teacher salaries. But Rocket Ship has solved this problem with high student-to-teacher ratios and using teaching aides paid very low salaries instead of certified teachers. All of this, as well as federal tax credits, create fertile ground for for-profit corporations and investors to reap millions from our per-student funding. Another cost-saving measure utilized by Rocket Ship that comes at the expense of students is the use of computers rather than teachers for instructional time. According to Richard Whitmire, the author of the generally positive 2013 book On Rocket Ship, How Top Charter Schools Are Pushing the Envelope, a major cost-saving solution is for students to spend significant time working on laptops in large groups supervised by non-certified, lower-paid, quote, instructional lab specialists. These lab specialists are actually uncertified teaching aides who make much less than teachers. Whitmire explains, quote, "Students rotating into learning labs meant employing fewer teachers. Thus, a school such as Rocket Ship Mosaic in California could successfully serve 630 students with only 6 teachers plus aides." An NPR story states that Rocket Ship students spend a fourth of the day on computers. Students as young as kindergarten are regularly plopped down in front of computer screens and are expected to stay silent and still for learning lab time. Learning labs often serve 50, 60, or 70 students who are supervised by a few or only a couple of people, often without full teacher training. According to NPR, quote, 5 former learning lab supervisors said chronic turnover, meetings, and sick days often left them double coaching or triple coaching, watching 60 or 90 students alone. But perhaps most concerning to me is Rocket Ship's use of extreme militaristic no excuses disciplinary model. Students are told how to move, where to stand, and even where to keep their eyes fixed. They are subjected to enforced silence at various times throughout the school day, including during lunch and other times when social interaction should take place. A Rocket Ship parent interviewed by NPR made this statement, quote, "Children are not allowed to use the bathroom during long class periods. My child developed a urinary tract infection and it could have been avoided. Many children are urinating on their pants because they're taught not to go during the duration of that class time. I many times saw children in the office waiting for their parent to show up due to the child urinating, unable to hold it any longer, and other times parents were not notified until their child spoke up. This does not just happen in kindergarten, it happens in the other grades too. At a time when we claim MNPS is focused on social emotional learning, how can we allow our precious students to be treated in this fashion? These no excuses methods are terribly disturbing to me because I find them to be abusive toward children. Time and again, I have received desperate complaints from parents whose charter schools have chosen to follow this no excuses model. It's simply wrong to treat children like tiny military recruits at a time when they should be growing, exploring, learning to express themselves, and learning to interact and to cooperate with others. We are sucking the spark of creativity and the chance to learn and experience empathy and compassion from these little souls. Other complaints about Rocketship on a national level include too much standardized testing and lack of transparency publicly on spending. Here in Nashville, we have dealt with problems from Rocketship for years. The first Rocketship, which opened with great fanfare due to a visit from Andre Agassi, chose to open right across the street from Jenna's adult toy box, clearly not a choice made with children in mind. A few years later, that school was performing in the bottom 3% of schools in the state. MNPS also learned that Rocketship was forcing homeless students to pay for their uniforms, failing to provide mandated services to English learners, and violating federal law by failing to provide services to special needs students. Despite its dismal performance, Rocketship has continued to try to open more schools in Nashville. When our local school board declined to approve another Rocketship contract, it appealed to the state, where its then director, Shaka Mitchell, called the board, quote, segregationists for failing to approve his bottom 3% school, which I find ironic because studies have shown that charter schools actually increase school segregation. Next, in 2018, the state-run Achievement School District forced open a new Rocketship here without board approval, a school that MNPS taxpayers funded but that we did not want or need. But when the school couldn't enroll enough students to turn a profit, Rocketship suddenly pulled the plug just months after opening its new school. At that time, which was only about a year and a half ago, Rocketship's Chief Growth and Community Engagement Officer vowed to focus only on its 2 existing schools. Rocketship operators obviously think nothing of opening and closing schools on a whim, regardless of the impact on the community and families that those schools serve. It's just business after all. But children are not commodities to be tossed aside in the quest for profit, and community should not be, to use an investor term, disrupted for the sake of a business model. And there are other financial issues as well. A Tennessean article from 2017 brought up several problems with Rocketship focused on its lack of transparency. First, Nashville taxpayers who give money to Rocketship could be funding the growth of charter schools in other states. And while we fund charters in other states, the growth of the charter sector in Nashville continues to drain our traditional schools of desperately needed funding. Second, the 2017 Tennessean article explained that Rocketship is bolstered by tax-exempt government bonds, which were being issued by an obscure, appointed Metro board with no real oversight. Local leaders complained that these bonds were being issued in secret. Furthermore, the board issuing the bonds was advised by attorneys who also served as charter school lobbyists for what was formerly Students First, a charter advocacy organization that has engaged in all sorts of dirty tactics and practices at our legislature and in local campaigns. In short, the lawyers pushed through bonds for charter schools while lobbying for their expansion at the Tennessee legislature at the same time. Finally, I'd like to address arguments about test scores. Charter schools tend to play far too many games with enrollment for me to fully trust their test scores. Charters often serve fewer of the most challenging and the most costly to educate students, and they sometimes cherry-pick more desirable students, either by encouraging those who struggle to move along or by avoiding them in the first place. Principals have complained to me that children who have been released from Rocketship back to their traditional public schools are behind and struggle to catch up with their peers. But even assuming that Rocketship is legitimately producing higher test scores, I must ask, at what cost? Rocketship is a churn and burn, drill and kill test prep factory devoid of true enrichment, stimulation, and developmentally appropriate instruction for children. We should care enough about our children's emotional development and their well-being to demand better for them. For these reasons and more, I am voting against Rocket Ship tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Vogt. Anybody else with any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, Rocket Ship number 3 will be, has been proposed to be in my district, District 6 in Antioch. And as I listened to my colleague talk about the extreme, horrible circumstances that our students are under now in the program, I had to ask myself, having 5 kids and all boys and wanted them to have a healthy, thriving academic future, would I send my child to this school? I've always had to ask that question because being in my position, it's all about the children. It's never about anything else. It's about our children. It's about our teachers. And we want the very best for them. So we want you guys to understand that is what our focus and our goal is. But I have to differ that this is not healthy for our kids. I have had friends that have had their children in charter schools under these extreme circumstances, and they have mentally, physically, and emotionally crashed while attending those schools. And so I had to ask myself, would I put my children in this situation, and would I put your children in this situation? And the answer is no. And for that reason, I will be voting no. Thank you.
So I have a few differing sentiments, only because I want us to take us back to the children and not be so ideologically focused. My only reason for not wanting to jump on board and vote for this charter school is because we just, as a system, don't have funding. We have limited dollars just floating around Nashville for education. When it comes to the city and the state, they are just not giving us the funding that we need. But I differ from some of my colleagues in that I don't think that, I think we play politics a lot, and we talk about types of schools, names of schools, what's happened in the past. I've actually been to a Rocket Ship. I've seen the different progress. I've heard from parents that they appreciate what's happening there, but we don't have the funding right now to outsource. We don't have the funding right now to say to a charter school, we're going to give you the money to do what we need to do. Now, true, we do need another school in South Nashville, for sure, but we just don't have the money. And I do think, years down the line, if the city and state can pull from within themselves to give us the funding that our students deserve, to give us the likely $20,000 per student versus the $10,000 per student that we're getting, then we can have a different conversation. But I want us to really just talk about how this impacts children versus how we look at things ideologically. I at least want you all to know that we are trying to be more people-focused than politics-focused.
Anybody else? Mr. Pinkston?
Yeah, a lot of what I was going to say, Ms. Froh covered in her comments, but I want to just kind of call out a couple of things. 2 years ago, Rocket Ship Northeast, which is the one that was held up as the exemplar in this quote-unquote replication application, was found by the Tennessee State Department of Education to be denying adequate services to English language learners and students with disabilities and forcing homeless students to pay for uniforms. That was 2 years ago. That's not too far in the past. And so if we're going to use measures of past performance in order to review a charter application, then let's look a little bit past 2 years, number one. Number two, as Ms. Froh suggested, last year, a Rocket Ship school collapsed in North Nashville, 4 blocks from Buena Vista Elementary School, because of poor academic performance and lack of ability to enroll students. That's a year ago, all right? So past performance, let's actually look at past performance, not just what the charter operator submits as past performance. The review team, I hate to say this, I've been generally impressed with the review team's work over the last few years, but the review team completely missed on this one, Dr. Battle, and this never should have gotten to this point. And furthermore, there's a little bit of a Groundhog Day aspect to this. This is how the school district used to do business in the past. From 2012 to 2015, it would be a raft load of charter applications, a raft load of recommended approvals, a raft load of appeals of appeals, special meetings, and all this stuff. So I really encourage you all to don't go backward. go forward. A lot of progress has been made, and this is sliding backward, in my opinion. And the last thing I would say is Rocket Ship is not an education provider. It's a real estate company. The proceeds that they get, the public proceeds, go to a LLC, a limited liability corporation in Delaware. It gets commingled with proceeds from other states and redistributed to other locations around the country. That's an issue that the legislature needs to deal with, the kind of stealing of Nashville and Tennessee taxpayer dollars and sending them to other states. But for all those reasons, including everything else that's been discussed here, I'm voting no.
Ms. Elrod.
Thank you. As Vice Chair Amy Frogg said, there's lots to be said to make sure that we're on the record for it. I want to make sure that I also say that I echo a lot of these sentiments, that I personally have a lot of moral concerns, along with, it sounds like a lot of my colleagues, about having, in the past, homeless students pay for the uniforms, to have an issue with our federally regulated needs for our children in exceptional ed and special ed, and along with our English language learners. I feel, particularly with this being Hispanic Awareness Month, that we should be more careful and more vigilant to those things. Additionally, I have a strong desire for us to be careful with our very few dollars that we have for our schools. Our budget and the needs that we have for the budget that the very limited budget that we have to be careful with it. And so also out of councilmatic courtesy, I also will be voting against this as well. All those together.
Anybody else with any comments? Ms. Puka-Walker.
I want to just say that I served as a chair of a charter review committee for several years. I know it's a tremendous amount of work that goes into that process. I understand that they're working within the confines of a rubric and the details and sort of the information as presented. I also want to say it's not insignificant, regardless of how you feel about the instructional model, that this school has achieved growth at the scale that it has achieved. I do believe that the parents in this room want the very best for their children, and they want to find a place where their children can thrive. I believe that parents are the very best judge of what's best for their children. And I also respect the opinions and the sort of evidence put forward by my colleagues here on the floor. This is not an easy decision. I respect the conversations about budgetary constraints. All of that is real, but I also know that families, particularly in the northern half of the county, are looking for better options. I understand that schools are crowded in the southern part of the county. This is a complicated conversation. I think we should be doing the same due diligence for schools that are not serving children well across the district, and doing our homework on what's happening in those schools and how we improve outcomes for kids in all of our schools. And so I just want to thank the committee for their hard work. I know it's a lot of work. I did that work. It's hours and hours of homework. And so I want to thank families for coming out tonight.
Anybody else with any comments? Okay, I think we've heard from everybody. We do have a motion on the floor that was properly seconded to deny the rocket ship application. So show of hands to approve this motion to deny rocket ship. Okay. Did you get that? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Queen. And thank you, colleagues. So we'll move on to the director's report, which is MNPS Energy Program update. Dr. Battle. As you're exiting, please do so quietly so we can have the rest of the school board meeting. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. We are proud of the good work our MNPS facility team does to keep our buildings in good shape and our students and employees safe. We have a couple of updates from them this evening. Our team has been working towards reducing the energy consumption in our district for the past few years. The goals of the energy program are to reduce costs for energy utilities so that we can focus as many resources as possible directly into student education and to be good stewards of our environment. The team is here tonight to update us on the progress they have been making on the energy program this year. But first, Executive Director of Facilities Maintenance and Construction, David Prophet, will update us on air quality testing in our schools and other buildings. David Prophet.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. Ms. Shepherd and board, I apologize. In light of some of the reports that you may have heard about radon testing and that sort of thing that has come about in the last few weeks, I wanted to update you all on what we do, what we have been doing, and what we will continue doing as we go forward. A little history, very briefly. In 2011, Metro Council mandated that the Metropolitan Nashville Department of Health conduct radon tests in our schools, quite frankly, in all Metro-owned public facilities. In doing so, they established what is called the Regulation 9, which is a set of regulations for testing in radon. First and foremost, that I want to assure everyone sitting at that panel and the persons behind me, our communities as a whole, is we have safe schools. Everything right now is fine. All of our schools have safe environments. Any of our actionable levels on our test are far below anything that is would be considered alarming at all. So I want to make that perfectly clear. As we go forward, we have since 2011, we've been reviewing those reports and taking actions to remediate the levels of radon in our schools. And we are going to take some preemptive measures I'll talk about in just a moment. The thing to know with that piece of information is that we follow the guidelines that are provided to us by the Department of Health. Depending on those levels would indicate what steps we need to take and when we need to take them. Certain levels would require the testing to be taken place over a 24-month period, for example, depending on what levels that we see in our test. So, and we also need to know that radon, to let you know, radon is in our everyday air. Every day that you breathe air, you're at some level of radon. It's in our ground. It's a naturally decomposing mineral in our soils. It's invisible, tasteless, and so it's something that we deal with in the mitigation methods that we deal with it, which may mean adjusting our mechanical systems within our schools. It may mean filling cracks or voids in our floors where the radon is known to exist. It may be the incorporation of a passive system within our buildings, which is pipes below the floor slab that act as a chimney up through the roof, or turning those passive systems into active systems by placing fans on those pipes. The point is that we take those tests, or the health department takes those tests. We review those test figures. We look at the individual concerns that the test results are showing, and we mitigate those, and then there is a retesting process. And then depending on the retesting process, then we have mitigation efforts that we make to make sure that those go away. Once we get into an active system, the levels will always go down. It's just that if you can control them by just means of normal HVAC efforts and making sure that those systems are efficiently running properly, then we can mitigate those things. Our last results of our tests, they've always been online, by the way. We did find out just recently that the test results weren't online, and we immediately took actions to reload those, so they're always available. It's on our webpage. I believe it's air quality results or air quality testing on the webpage. So you'll always have those there. You can see your schools. You can see when they were tested, what levels they were tested, what rooms specifically were tested, and then, excuse me, and then what second and possibly third test results were. There were 24 schools throughout the district that had actionable levels. And when they were retested, they still had some actionable levels that had to be taken care of. 8 of those schools no longer have the actionable levels, either based upon, well, various factors. Most of them what we have taken in terms, what we've done in terms of mitigating the circumstances in which the radon has been tested at certain levels. So I'll leave it at that. I think that's, I just want to assure you that we're on it. We've talked to our principals. In fact, we've talked to the 24 different groups, or most of them today, in fact, about what we're doing, what we're going to be doing. Oh, one of the things, let me say this too. This is also important. The health department prescribes when they test and when things are retested, not MNPS. With that said, once we find a level that is of an actionable level to remediate, we're going to take some preemptive test measures ourselves to look at those very shortly after we receive the results. We'll contact the principals so that they can determine what they need to do with their own communities and in terms of informational exercise that they may perform. But we want to take our own levels and begin that process well in advance of when retesting by the health department occurs. So if we can get a jump on it, we will. And that's our goal, and to be a little bit more aggressive with it than what the health department might require. Okay? So with that, Dr. Battle, we'll turn it over to, I want to introduce Casey Mago, our Assistant Director of Facility Planning and Construction, and Bruce Resnick, our Energy Manager, to give you an update on the energy program that we've begun in our department.
Thank you for this opportunity to update you on the exciting work we've been doing in our energy conservation program. Again, my name is Casey Mago. This is Bruce Rasnick. And I also wanted to introduce 2 other members of our team that are here tonight, Matt Spence and David Dean. They're back in the back. So quickly, going through a brief history. In 2010, we began designing and constructing energy efficient buildings through our LEED program, which you just heard Pennington got LEED Silver. That makes 18 buildings that we have LEED Silver. We also have 2 LEED Gold buildings, so they're just meeting an even higher energy efficiency standard. And Tusculum Elementary School and Eagleview Elementary School were the first 2 public schools in the state of Tennessee to receive this recognition. Now, the district's current energy initiative began in 2016. Since its inception, we have done some limited capital building improvements, including LED lighting upgrades, roof replacements, and HVAC equipment replacements. Now, as we've done these system change out in our buildings, we are bringing them up to modern standards, current codes, including energy efficiency requirements. But our biggest savings, that second bullet, is how we've achieved savings to date. And I'll show you a slide in just a minute on some of our successes thus far. But this is changing set points. So during non-school hours, so outside of the hours before and after care at elementary schools, and then after programs are done, clubs, sports at middle and high schools, we turn the temperature up in the summer or down in the winter. So we're not turning the systems off. We're actually just setting them higher or lower depending on the weather outside. And this has created significant energy savings thus far. We've also, since we've had our energy consultant on board, we've been gathering and analyzing a mountain of data. And Bruce will tell you a little bit later in the presentation about how that data has been informing the decisions that we're making on our energy savings program. Now, we do have an energy consultant on board. We put out an RFP earlier this year, and the contract was approved by the board in April. You also may recall that in March of this year, we presented various options for contracting with the energy consultant to the Budget and Finance Committee. And these options included a shared savings model, a payment upfront option, and a consultative model. The current contract that we have with SiteLogic is for consultative services. We pay them directly for the software license and for the man hours that they invest directly with MNPS in this energy program. This method gives us the most control over our energy program, as well as all of the avoided costs come directly back to us. Now, we have had other vendors interested in contracting with us and bypassing this RFP process. Those vendors, some of them use proprietary software, which makes it impossible for us to verify their claimed cost avoidance. Other programs require capital outlay for the upgrades and the energy savings, and even some have a disproportional amount of savings that go to the vendor instead of to us in order to pay back those upfront advances on energy savings. Now, most of these vendors who have approached us, they have proposed a shared savings model. And this model would put MNPS in an adversarial position with our energy consultant and potentially require us to make changes in our buildings that would put our occupants in personal discomfort and to maximize energy savings so that the vendor could put the most money in their own pocket. Our current contracting method, this aligns with our focus of the energy program. We want to maintain staff and student comfort while maximizing our energy savings. So very simply, our goal is to save as much money, to avoid as much cost as possible on utilities so that we can divert the resources directly to the students in the classroom. Now, the goal of our energy program is to lower our energy consumption by 16% over the next 5 years. Now, keep in mind, this is achieved without any capital. So if we do make capital upgrades to our building, like LED lighting or new modern HVAC equipment, we have the potential for even more savings. Now, again, our current contracting method, we save more, we keep more. 16%. So that comes from comparing ourselves to other school districts in Tennessee and across the nation. A 16% reduction will bring us in line with how other districts are currently efficiently operating. And that 16% translates into a $10 million cost avoidance over the next 5 years. So the next 2 slides will show you how we've calculated these savings. So again, we're trying to save $10 million or avoid $10 million in utility costs over the next 5 years. Now, this graph illustrates how we calculate avoided cost. The blue line is the last 4 years of actual energy costs. Now, this is just natural gas and electricity. Water is not represented in these numbers since it's not a cost of an energy component of a building. But as you can see, the MNPS energy management team has already made significant success in energy savings from 2 years ago to last year. And the dashed red line, that represents our anticipation of energy cost if no further energy upgrades are made to our buildings. So we anticipate utility rates to increase 3 to 6% a year in the coming years. And the green line, that's our program goal. Now, the difference between that green line and the red line, that's our $10 million in avoided cost. So our goal is to lower our energy utility costs in the coming year and then beat inflation for the next 5 years. So this means that our $21 million budget for natural gas and electricity will not need to increase for the next 5 years. Now, please realize, I'm going to throw in a caveat, that this includes normal weather, okay? The hot spell that we've just had, that changes a little bit of our numbers. But likewise, if we have a mild winter, we keep that savings because of how we have our contracts set up. So while the dollars are important, also being good stewards of our environment is important. And this is the graph that really excites me, as I'm a big tree hugger, sorry. This shows our energy consumption trends. So again, the blue line is the last 4 years of energy usage in our district. And again, I want to point out that the energy management team has already been able to save roughly 5% through the measures that we've already put in place. The red dashed line, that's our baseline. So that's what we assume if we continue on the track we're on with no additional changes to the district. And the green line, that's where we're seeing our fully implemented energy savings plan in the district. So we're anticipating about 8% this first year, and then a 2 to 3% kind of staying with inflation, a decrease in energy use over the next 5 years. So again, that 16% goal that we set for consumption savings, with continued improvement in our efficient use of buildings, that's how we beat inflation, and that's how we have a steady budget for the next 5 years. Okay, I'm going to throw in my caveat again. This is predicting normal weather, and we do expect variations depending on what Mother Nature hands us. So I know you're wondering by now, how do we make this happen? How do we get there? So that's where Bruce is going to take it over because he is the expert on this subject.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Casey's put a good goal in place for us, and the big thing is how are we going to make this happen? And that's where our partners have come in and really kind of set the bar for us and helped us understand what our potential is. But the big thing we wanted to make sure that they understood from us is we're going to reach for that goal, but we have an educational environment that we need to maintain. We want to make sure that the students and staff comfort is a priority as we're making these adjustments. And as you can see in this slide, that staff and student comfort is the center of how we're doing this process. And if we just go around, point by point here, the program updates, this is a fluid, this process is fluid and dynamic. It's ever evolving. We're going to go in and start in one direction, and we're going to find opportunity that takes us a little bit in a different direction. We may start down a path that we realize, hey, this is not going to give us the potential savings that we thought, and we need to back up a little bit. So we're constantly updating our program. The staff and student education is a big piece. We need our students and our staff to really, teachers especially, to really understand what we're trying to do here, to help. We're going to educate our kids to understand what the potential we have and what they have as potential energy conservers in the future. The big thing is we want to show them, as we're educating them, how they can contribute to our goal. Rewards and incentives. We have opportunities that SiteLogic has identified through the course of their working with other districts across the country that are very advantageous. We haven't put any of those in place yet, but there is opportunity there for us to research and determine whether that's something we could do, where we would actually reward our schools, our students, our small teams, whatever we decide, for their contribution to our program. Community and outreach. So this is where we share what we're doing. This is what we share, how we're doing it, share our successes. And a lot of this is going to come through dashboards. Part of this data collection and analytical piece that Casey mentioned, we have dashboards that are available to our teachers, to our staff, to our parents, the community. Everyone can see what's going on live as it's happening, how we're doing, how one school's performing better than others. So that's that part there. And then continual operation improvement. This is walking the walk. We come up with these procedures that we decide is a good opportunity for us. The scheduling after hours, as Casey mentioned. We have several other opportunities that we've identified, especially during those times when schools are unoccupied, that we can really reduce how much we're spending. This is when we put those procedures and plans into place and how we get that done. So the actions we take. This is a list. It's maybe 15 or 20 items. We probably have another 200 we could add to this list. And I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all the details of each one of these items, but I do have a couple that I'd like to highlight. The first one is establishing energy teams. It's the first column, about 5 down, I guess. And the big thing here is this is where it's a holistic approach to energy management. My team of myself and 2 employees, there's no way we can achieve the goals that we've set with that small of a team. But if we can bring everyone together from the top-down, bottom-up approach, we can really harness this potential that we've identified. The biggest thing here is these teams would be able to give us oversight on those comfort things that we were talking about, to make sure that we are not crossing that line. We're making sure that we're focusing on the educational side of things, and we're not putting our students and our teachers in a place where comfort is an issue. We want to get as much savings as we can, but we want to do it in a way that keeps that comfort and balance. The other piece here that I really wanted to point out is our educational program, and this is one that really excites me because I've already had staff members come to me asking for education. They just, hey, what can you do? And my students are eager to learn about this. They want to know what we can do. Just recently at H.G. Hill Middle School, they have a program where they're doing composting, but no one will come train them how to compost. So that's part of the thing that we will be going to do. We'll help them with those things. Whether it's energy directly or environmental, we'll be glad to help in those areas. This particular school has volunteered on an upcoming break to do we're out of school list check So we're going to give them a checklist to turn off the lights, to make sure they're, anything that can be turned off is turned off, so that 7 days that we're gone we're as efficient as we can be. In addition to that, we've already made contact with Dr. Berry and the STEAM program, and we're very excited, and she was actually very excited to want to incorporate and work with us in that program. Smaller pieces would be after-school clubs, energy clubs, just like we have other clubs throughout the school. Even energy detectives, folks that go around and identify problems in the school and point it out to the teachers, kind of put them on notice. More comprehensive would be state-certified curriculums that can be developed and worked in our STEAM programs, where we actually have students who can put a capstone together to culminate their learning and present a project where even maybe they were an energy manager and they got to do a facility audit and can do present the results of that. The last piece I wanted to touch on this page was the support of capital improvements. As you heard Casey said, this project, this 16% improvement and the $10 million of avoided costs that she talked about did not include capital improvements. And I want to make sure you understand this is not adding capital improvements. What this is as we do this data collection, as we do all these things we're talking about, we're going to find opportunities where we can best spend our capital dollars. So we may find a school that, because its consumption is so high, we'd rather focus on that school than another school that we had planned on focusing on. So this program is going to help us identify and really pinpoint and hone in on those schools that can help us reach our goals. So what are our next steps? The biggest thing here is we're going to continue on with what we've started. We've already got some set points that we've put in place. It's been almost a year now where that's been in place. We have scheduling that we're doing. Our big thing is there's so many building automation systems out there that we need to hone those in and fine-tune them. We might have the school globally programmed, but there could be individual areas that aren't in line with that program. So this is our time to start doing that. We're already identifying areas for things that we can do during school breaks when it's not impacting the staff or the students, things of that nature. So this is what we're doing right now with the program. We're going to keep doing that and focusing on that. We're going to review and update these procedures. So SiteLogic, with their oversight and their guidance, helps us determine where we can, save some money. An area that they've recently pointed us to is our vending machines. Vending machines almost run 24 hours a day. That's a lot of money when you look at 365 days a year. There's some products out there that's very inexpensive that's allowing us to reduce how long that vending machine runs, especially when no one else is in the building or no one's using it. So we're hoping to incorporate things just like that. Summertime kitchen equipment, refrigerators and freezers, the small ones, not the big ones obviously, but the small ones. We have opportunity to turn those off where in the past we may have been missing that. The last part here, we're going to continue this conservation program with board updates and approval. So what that means is we're going to do just what we're doing right now. We want to come to you, let you know what's happening. It could be in this presentation style. It could be on a weekly or monthly update that you get on a written correspondence. Either way, we want to be very transparent as what we're doing. We want you to know how it's going, and then we want your input on what you think we should do differently, if we're going down the wrong road or if we need to continue down the path we've started. So with that said, we really want to take a minute to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. And Dr. Battle, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thanks so much.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to Casey and Bruce and also to David Prophet. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and I met with David Prophet and your team recently to talk about these issues. So I'm so appreciative that you have brought this to the board. In my house, we purchased a thermostat where we can adjust it over a 24-hour period to make it warmer or cooler, and that has saved quite a bit of money in our own home. And in a district as large as we are, I so appreciate, especially with our budget constraints, that you are going the extra mile to help us save money. The projected $10 million savings over 5 years is significant, and I thank you all for that. the idea of composting and training our students how to compost, and the energy clubs is very exciting to me. I love the fact that you are even thinking about vending machines and how to save money on energy consumption with the vending machines. And you're doing all of this while keeping our teachers and our students comfortable. So thank you so much.
Anybody else with any questions? Ms. Brown?
So I've got a question, but first of all, I want to also thank you all, because we've been talking about this since I got on the board in 2012, and I'm really excited to see it finally come to fruition. And also, I have a child at H.G. Hill Middle, so I didn't know about the composting. That's awesome to hear. And you also should reach out to Westmead Elementary, because they have been, okay, good. They've been trying to do this sort of project for years, and I know they would love to have your support. But my question is, how many schools is this implemented in right now? Are we scaling up?
Good question. So right now we have 4 different building automation systems in play. And I assume you're talking about building automation and the set points and scheduling. Is that?
I don't know. I'm just asking, like,
The majority of what we've looked at so far in this program is building automation and how we can maintain comfort but reduce how long our systems are running. It's like you pull your car in the garage at night, you leave it running all night, you come back in the morning so it's nice and cool when you get in. We would never do that. Our schools are the same thing. We don't want to leave it running all night just so it's cool the next morning, if we can keep it cool by starting it up an hour or 2 before school starts. So to answer your question, I don't have the numbers right offhand. It's approximately 75% of our schools have some sort of building automation in place. We have 4 different systems. Several of them are antiquated, and as capital dollars come in, again, not associated with our savings that you saw here, but there are efforts to upgrade those systems as they come in. So we have about 50% of those schools on what we call a Honeywell system. Honeywell is a non-proprietary building automation system, which allows us to use several vendors to help us with that, to help us with that installing and repairing. Where other systems that we have are proprietary, we're locked into one company, we have to use their equipment, their parts. When their stuff gets outdated, we have no other resource, we have to use them. So long story short, about 75% total, 25% that we still have nothing, and about 50% on the new program. So,
Thank you.
Anybody else with any questions or comments? I do have one question, and this might be for Mr. Prophet. I believe you mentioned when you were doing your radon report out that keeping the air moving, i.e. the air on, the heat on, helps dissipate that. So how does that work on the weekends when, you can ride by any school in this district and we have folks working on the weekend. That's just that's just the fact. So how does it work on the weekends when we cut back on the utilities and?
Yes, ma'am. The air still operates. It just may not operate, much like what your house. Let's say, and Ms. Spearing made a good point, if she sets hers back at, let's say she goes out of town and over the weekend she sets it back so that the temperature is 80 degrees in the summer instead of the 72 that she might want at her house when she's at home. Similarly, in the schools, you do the same thing. It's just that the systems don't come on as much as they normally would. So, but they're still always running. It's not that we just flip a switch and turn them all off. They still operate. You still have to condition a space. You still have to remove humidity. You still have to do certain things. So the air is still moving. It's still dissipating in this particular case, and direct to your question, radon and those other contaminants that might be in the air. So it doesn't affect, the two don't affect really one another. Okay?
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. It doesn't sound exciting, but it really is exciting.
We're excited.
So we'll go to the announcements portion of our meeting, and we'll start with you, Ms. Elrod.
Okay. 1 second, please. Let me get them together. Okay. So, most of mine are regarding what we've already discussed. So first, because I knew we were talking about
our LEED certification, I wanted to once again give a shout out to Tusculum Elementary, as they were the first to receive gold in the state. And that is a beautiful facility, and there is so much to be learned there, including, as well as talking about in our award recognition, the LEED certification. We talked about Community Achieves and those Family Resource Center coordinators. And Mary Gildry is at Tusculum, and I was so glad to see her being honored. That's incredible work that's being done there. And on that note, we recently had over there a community partners meeting, so please allow me to share a note from there. Tusculum is currently in some need at their resource center of small or low amount gift cards for gas for some families and for necessity treatments like for lice treatments and other kinds of things. So that is something that if you have that ability to donate to, that would be much appreciated. And we are so appreciative for that help there through the Pencil Foundation. So that brings me to my last one. Principal for a Day is coming up on October 29th, which is a Tuesday. It's an incredible opportunity for anyone within our communities to please come inside of our schools and shadow one of our fantastic principals. And you can see firsthand what some of that experience is like and learn from them. So that's it.
Thank you. 7 years ago, Dr. Sue Kessler took a chance on a first-year teacher at Hunters Lane High School, and she hired Mr. Will Brooks to become the band director at Hunters Lane Comprehensive High School. Dr. Kessler has not been disappointed. When Mr. Brooks started at Hunters Lane, there were 17 band students. Today, there are 74. For the past 7 years, Mr. Brooks, all of the seniors at Hunters Lane High School have received scholarships due to the leadership of Mr. Will Brooks. Last week, Mr. Brooks and his students received donations equaling about $90,000 of instruments and greatly needed chairs to enhance and expand his musical program. Our community is very proud of Mr. Brooks and his fabulously talented Warrior Band students. Much appreciation to StubHub Ticket Forward program, which partners with the Mr. Hollins Opus Foundation. Also, we had a busy week last week, didn't we? Last week, also, the CEO of Amazon visited Madison Middle School to launch a new program for Metro schools. And Madison Middle, Amazon announced their plans to work in Metro schools in 21 schools, including Lytton and Madison Middle School, as well as Hunters Lane and Maplewood. Students will learn robotics, computer science, and we appreciate Amazon's commitment to our Nashville students. The Amazon Future Engineering Program will fund robotics programs at 21 elementary, middle, and high schools, and give an additional $10,000 to schools to expand computer science education at 24 schools. Amazon will also fund introductory and AP computer classes in 3 high schools, and the partnership with MNPS will provide new hardware, technology upgrades, field trips to Amazon's robotic fulfillment centers, and the Amazon Future Engineering Program will also award 100 students from across the country a 4-year, $10,000 scholarship and paid Amazon internships. I want to thank Mr. Pinkston for his help in instigating this initiative, and we appreciate so much the work and the investment that Amazon is making in our students. Thank you.
I'd like to continue the love for our wraparound service providers, particularly Community Achieves. I was so excited. I got partnered with my lunch buddy from last year at Fall Hamilton, so I'll be kicking it with Tyler on Tuesdays again for the rest of this year. I'm so excited to see her little face. But I've had the pleasure of speaking to a number of community groups over the last few months, and the one recurring question I get is, how can I help? There are adults who want to be supporting our schools. Please do. Please either email or call one of your school board members. It does not have to be your district representative. Any of us can point you in the right direction, or you can reach out directly to your school or to a school that's in your area or to the Pencil Foundation. I think we need to just kind of encourage our community to really wrap their arms around Nashville schools more, because we love you, to love us. Thank you.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Antioch High School and Cambridge High School for making such a huge accommodation for students that have transferred out of KA, unfortunately, and they have transitioned into our high schools. And I just can't, I'll be remiss if I did not acknowledge both of those high schools. We're already, yes, at capacity. Mr. Prophet? School soon. Yeah. So we're going to probably get another school soon. I'm praying and hoping we find some land, and he can give me some good news maybe tonight. Oh, no.
Dream on.
So I just want to just tell. Well, all right, yay. So I just want to make sure I give them kudos because this was really hard to transition so many students at these schools, and they have done a tremendous job, and we appreciate all they do and all of what you guys have also done as far as the staff. So thank you guys so much.
Ms. Bebo Walker.
Yeah, I want to also give a big thank you to all of the community school coordinators. I was a former community school coordinator at Glencliff High School under Tony Majors. That is a 24-hour day job, and appreciate all the work that they do. Hillsborough had their homecoming this past weekend, and all the cluster schools showed up, and J.T. Moore and West End Band, 8th grade musicians played with the band, the marching band, which was awesome. And we have Hillsborough players doing Shakespeare's 12th Night coming up soon. That's September 26th. You should come and check it out. And then finally, a very close partner of Waverly Belmont is closing. Box, which is Bongo on 10th, is closing next door to Waverly Belmont, and they have been a tremendous partner to that school, and so wanted to thank them for all that they've done.
Yeah, I do have a few myself. I wanted to extend congratulations to Mayor-elect John Cooper and all the victors in the runoff races a couple weeks ago. I do look forward to working with all of them as we work towards a moral budget for our school district. I'd like to give a warm welcome to the new academy coach at McGavock High School, Miss Whitney Patton. She was hired to replace Jacob Glancy, who moved with his family back to his hometown in Chattanooga. We will miss Jacob, but I'm sure we'll enjoy working with Whitney. Thank you to my colleagues for getting me your priority list for committee and board assignments. I look forward to working with each one of you as we embark on this new year. Due to the fact that our next school board meeting falls in fall break, we will not have a meeting on Tuesday, October the 8th. So our next school board meeting will be Tuesday, October 22nd. So enjoy the break. Also, last but not least, I wanted to give a recognition to Ms. Buggs and Dr. Gentry, who's not here tonight, for the work that they did for us last year. So Ms. Bobo has a special something for you. A round of applause. Thank you. And with that,
Be there no further business. This meeting is adjourned.
thank you, everybody.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.